Welcome to the Great Plains Gravel Cup, powered by the SufferSooner podcast. If you're into riding gravel or just love a good challenge, you're in the right place. This is where we bring you all the gritty details from the world of gravel racing across Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. We'll be covering 6 premier events, including Flint Hills, Open Range, Mule Skinner, Rock Ridge, Solstice, and Pony Express. All gravel, all awesome. Each episode will bring you stories from the leaders, race directors, first-timers, and some truly epic moments from these events. So buckle up and join us as we explore the heart of the gravel world. One race at a time. All right, guys. Welcome to the SufferSooner podcast. We're talking with Michael from Great Plains Gravel Cup. He's the men's overall leader after 5 races, which the cool thing about this is he has yet to win a race. Which is crazy, which is, I think when I was talking to Bobby in the first part of this series, I was mentioning the fact that this series does reward consistency. And, just going over the results from the races, you have been very, very consistent. You've been right up there every single race, except for the last race. But we'll get into that. I want to talk about that one for
Ridge,
sure.
There was a little hiccup, but
yeah.
No, it's kind of funny because there's the drop race element, and so I knew that I had a little bit of a buffer going into Rock Ridge, but I think technically Jacob and I are tied when I looked at the point standings, but with drop races, it gets a little interesting. So the cool thing is, obviously 6 races and Pony Express. I mean, Rock Ridge was always going to be the shakeup race, and of course it was. But Pony Express, is going to be crazy. But with drop races, I think I still have I can't remember what the gap is, but a couple points ahead of Jacob. So. Hoping it's maybe not as big of a flat risk there. I've never raced Pony Express before, but I have some new tires in the garage waiting to throw on.
So let's go over each race. This is what's crazy. So the first race, Flint Hills, it was a 3-up sprint. You came in second, and then Open Range, another 3-up sprint. Came in third. The Mule Skinner was not a sprint, but you had like 14 riders in that group that were all separated by like 2 seconds. Yeah. So I imagine there was like
crazy.
I imagine that last push into Mule Skinner, kind of everybody was just on the limit.
Right.
And then Solstice, you outsprinted Josh Hicks for second. And then Rock Ridge was the only hiccup here with 11th. And your point standings are with Jacob is 5 points with the drop race and tied with the drop race, and only 5 points separate you guys from the lead, which is just amazing racing to just follow the whole season. So.
Yeah, super consistent.
Yeah,
and that, I mean. There's only so many riders at the front of the race.
Yeah.
And so for you to have that type of consistency, and it is frustrating probably not to win the race. I mean, especially when they come down to bunch sprints. But but I'll tell you, anytime you can just hang out in that top 3 and you podium 4 out of the 5 races, that's kind of hard to argue with those results.
No.
So,
thank you. No, I have a couple things to say about that. So one is I traditionally am not a sprinter. I always do well or better, I guess I should say, and breakaway style efforts. The harder the race, generally the better, especially from a road racing perspective. Any success that I've had has been from kind of a smaller group typically. So of course with gravel, it's super common to have kind of this race of attrition. The group gets whittled down and then it's a sprint. And traditionally I'd like to think that. Yeah, and obviously getting the podium at several of these events has been awesome. But yeah, it's been a little bit frustrating because I haven't been able to piece it together. And what makes this season unique is I've been racing for I think 13 years, or maybe this is my 14th year, and and so this year at the spring fling races locally, they're a 5-weekend crit race series starting at the end of February, going through March, and it was probably the best sprinting that I've ever done. I mean, I won the first race, and it's point style racing, and so there's these intermediate sprints, and I kind of surprised myself. Like I was, I kind of became the sprinter on our team, oddly. And so going into these gravel races, I was like, oh man, like,
I got my
like
sprint down.
yeah, like I've got my sprint down. Like this should, like it kind of boosted my confidence a little bit. And so at Flint Hills, of course it's a headwind finish, and so that always makes the racing kind of unique because guys get really confident early on in the race. You feel like you have wings, and
Yep.
then of course you get to the halfway point, you're like, oh no, like
Yeah, this
now
is
I have
horrible.
this slog. and so one of he's now a teammate, but Sam Steinlich, who just recently joined Move Up, and I guess technically had maybe started to have conversations with our team at Flint Hills, but of course he wasn't wearing our kit quite yet, and him and I had never met, but I mean, having raced against a lot of these guys for years, and then especially some of the newer guys kind of being up and coming, like for the most part you kind of know who's going to be in that front group. Well,
Yeah.
Sam was kind of this outlier in our group, and he was just sending it, like in the tailwind section, like anytime the road would pitch up, I mean he was like just hammering. And so having kind of learned how to read some of these race dynamics over the years, I was like, oh man, like this guy, what? And so then it reached about the halfway point, and we started getting into the headwind section. People are starting to get tired, and it was like, oh no, this guy's legit.
Yeah,
Like
he's still going.
Yeah, he's still going.
Like he's going to ride away from us if we're not careful. And so our group was kind of having trouble getting organized. Well, finally, we all kind of are together, and I was trying. I was feeling particularly fatigued, and it was like, okay, let's try to get organized here. And so like it was still the group was struggling to kind of be smooth. Well, Sam eventually just ends up riding the front, and I mean probably rode the last 20 miles on the front.
Wow.
And so of course for me I was like, and I don't know he's a teammate at the time, and I'm like, thank goodness there's somebody that's willing to take up the brunt of the work.
Right.
So we come into that final stretch, and Sam has just done all this work, and I think the rest of us, Jacob and Owen and myself, were like, okay, well now it's time to sprint.
Yeah.
And what was so unique about that sprint is we took the right turn onto the pavement, and it was 3 up across the road, me, Owen, and Jacob. And it was as if we were doing like a 2-minute like interval session just right next to each other. And because it was a pretty big crosswind, and it was so unique because typically in a situation like that, if we were in a road race, it would have been, a little bit more kind of cat and mouse. Like, I mean, I've been in sprints like that where you're at a standstill, because we had,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
such a huge gap for the chase group behind us. And instead it was just this slog to the finish. And so what was funny about that is I was like, this actually probably suits me better because I knew Owen could sprint too. And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of my style of sprint, make it hard. And so then we are getting, we're probably 200 meters from the finish, opening it up. And then right before the line, I mean, you've died 1,000 deaths in this 2 minutes. And Owen just nips me at the line. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no. And so I tell that story because, I think had I just sprinted through the line, it may not have turned out that way. And so it was kind of the lesson, and what ended up being the theme of the rest of these races is like, I'm never like letting up until after the finish line.
Yeah.
And so open range, of course, like total death march. But it was all pavement, and I'm like, okay, like this, the road racer in me, I'm like, oh, dude, this is great being on pavement.
Yeah.
And but it was cold, raining the whole day. Well, then we get to the finish line and it's kind of this small group again. And I'm like, all right, now, like, I'm definitely not taking Owen for granted. And I knew Josh was acting like he was the stronger person in our group. And so I was like, and he hadn't yet joined our team either. And him and I, chat quite a bit just because he trains pretty early in the morning like I do. And so, I kind of know his racing style. And I was like, okay, Josh may kind of burn a match in this final kilometer or whatever. And so I'm like, I'm going all in on this sprint. We're going to be sprinting, 100 meters past the finish line. No big deal. And well, then Tanner Cook, who is a guy from Texas who is in our group, he is a mountain biker. And I didn't really know of him, but, bigger guy, looks like he can sprint, but he, I think, had shared at one point in our small group that he was a little bit newer to racing and at least maybe gravel racing. And so it was one of those things where, I think kind of in our rotation, it was this cross tailwind for a lot of the breakaway once we finally had kind of made separation. And he was kind of leaving gaps open up and stuff like that. And so I kind of counted him out. I was like, okay, he's feeling the effort of the day.
Right.
Even though he's a bigger guy, looks like he can sprint, probably don't have to worry about him too much. Well, we take the turn into the final stretch and we open up and Josh was the first one to open up that sprint. And, we're just, all going, and it was too early. I mean, it was probably like 500 meters to go. Well, so Josh kind of sits up and I'm like, okay, well, here comes Tanner just like tearing it up. And I mean, he like dropped, it was like we were standing still. And so, and I was like, okay, I guess, second place consolation. Well, then Owen comes flying up the side too.
No.
I'm like, dude, maybe like apparently I need to start like doing some sprint workouts again or something.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't, I was just like, oh man, okay. And so then Mule Skinner, I mean, big group coming to the finish. And, it's kind of the same deal where it's like come in, small group. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to sprint until I fall over.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, it's the same thing. I mean, literally got pipped at the line. And so, yeah, it's kind of been the theme of the series is just, it's like it kind of gets these whittled down groups. We end up sprinting. Solstice, Josh, even though he didn't have a kit, I knew he had joined our team, which kind of ended up being kind of a unique like race dynamic because, I was trying to kind of make it known as our group whittled down that Josh was, kind of part of our team, just so it didn't seem weird.
So nobody was getting on you for pedaling soft or anything like that.
Kind of
not attacking. Yeah,
exactly, because where the separation happened in Solstice, it was this crosswind section, and of course the wind and the heat was kind of the theme of that day.
Yeah.
And so we get to this crosswind section, and I mean, it's like, I mean, you see it in the World Tour races. I mean, regional level races. Like, I mean, crosswinds just can tear fields apart. And so when we reached that section, it was apparent that was going to be where the split happened, especially going into this tailwind. Where you don't get as much of a draft. It was like, okay, like now's our opportunity to make this selection. And, I mean, it was mile 17 of a 70-mile race. And so, it's kind of a gamble. But I told Sam and Josh, I was like, this is where we should kind of, put the bulk of our effort into. And so we just started rotating and kind of creating an echelon in that crosswind section. And but what was funny about Solstice is, we finally get the split after about 5 miles of kind of these cat and mouse games. And poor Jacob, he made it into our group, and it was me, Sam, Josh, Jackson Simmons, who's been riding super strong this season. So you have 4 teammates, and then Jacob made that split too. And so, I mean, and then I think there was maybe one other guy that was there for a bit, but he didn't last long. Jacob was kind of the last man, and of course, he's the biggest contender against the whole series. Well, so Jacob, I mean, it's like, it's like there's I mean, it's just like you're 1v4. Like, I mean, it's just a horrible situation to be in because, it's like anytime you rotate to the back, it's like, you just slide off the back and, it's not like your teammates are going to leave you. And so then you sprint around, make it back up to your teammate. And then each of the 4 of your teammates can do that same strategy where you kind of gap off the back, then sprint back up. But of course, Jacob's having to do that every single time. The alternative, and this is something that we talk about with some of the newer guys on our team. If you find yourself in that situation, the alternative is, even though you're at a huge disadvantage, it's a risk still, but you're almost better off. There is an argument for actually joining the rotation and just trying to participate, and then at least you're not getting dropped off the back every rotation. But he has been racing super aggressive in these races, and I think has kind of been going all in. And so he kind of took the opposite strategy. We're going off the back, getting back up. So it ends up being the 3 of us. Well, Sam was riding super strong that day. And so Josh and I on every single climb were just like, Sam, you gotta take it easy on us. We got a long day. It's only going to get hotter. Let's
the wind's not letting up anytime soon.
Right?
So
exactly.
Let's try to make it to the line. And
exactly. And so anyways, we, and at that point we kind of had our gap, and, so every climb, he's just putting us on the limit. And so we're like, oh man, Sam, like, just so we're clear, the win is yours today, man. Like you're the guy,
We got it.
So at about mile 40, I'm just like, dude, you've been riding so strong today. Like, just again, like the win's yours. I think we've all done a really good job with this effort today. And he goes, yeah, you guys are crushing it too. If it's cool with you guys, I think I'm just going to sit on the front and ride a tempo just to kind of continue to get a good workout in. And Josh and I kind of look at each other and we're like, dude, I thought that's what you've been doing this whole time.
Yeah. He's like, hey, the warm up's over. I'm ready to get started.
I'm ready to start racing whenever you guys are.
That's exactly. And so we get to probably, it was around mile 60 and it started to kind of get, more crosswind section. And there were some, sandy sections in that course. And so we start to get to kind of these rolling climbs. And there was a climb where he just ended up rolling away from us. And, I think it was apparent, like, okay, we're holding you back probably more than, and so we have 10 miles left in the race, of course. And Josh and I weren't exactly taking it easy. And by the time we finished, I think Sam had put about a minute and a half on us by the time he finished just in that last 10 miles. And so Josh and I, I think he was like, hey man, you take second. So, unfortunately didn't get to test my sprint at Solstice, but, no. And then, Rock Ridge, with the, with the rocks and everything. Tire selection, I think was pretty important. I'm riding one of the older generation Laufs. And so, the max clearance, particularly in the rear, is 45 mil. And so I opted for some, Pathfinders, and, which, I did Unbound last year, rode the Pathfinder. I think it's a great tire. It does
good
really
tire.
well on the hills. Yeah. And, I think even for, a narrower tire, they do really well. And so going through one of the creek crossings, I ended up getting a pinch flat and, a small puncture. And so I could feel it happen, but it sealed right away. Okay. So I'm like, oh, sweet. But I could tell it was a little bit soft. And I was asking Josh, I'm like, hey, man, does my rear tire look low? And it was funny. Calvin Horner.
Nope, looks
Calvin
good.
Horner. Yeah, well, exactly. And, so Calvin Horner, who ended up winning, he comes up next to me and he's like, dude, you flatted and it looks terrible. And I don't think he was. I don't think he was trying to be like overly dramatic about it. I think he was genuinely like, "Hey, man, just in case you didn't realize, like, you had a puncture.
You need to take care of that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I know. And so then, of course, you know, it kind of gets in your head. And that was at mile 35, just after we had hit those rolling climbs.
Yep.
And so, I mean, that was kind of where the big selection of the day had happened. And so, I mean, we had kind of started to turn the screw a little bit. And so I was like, this is a horrible time to stop and put some air in the tire. I'm just gonna, like, you know, it doesn't feel like, there was maybe one time where I felt rim going over like a big bump, and it was kind of a like, it was like, man, I may have hit the rim anyways,
Yeah.
just for how hard I hit it. And so I wasn't overly worried. But we got to that B road. I can't remember which road it was, but at mile 40, and it was going through kind of one of the like descents, and Sam, of course, was on the front, just like tearing it up. Which,
Yeah.
honestly, I was like, oh man, like, we're in a really, really good position right here. Sam and I are both riding super strong. Josh had already snapped his seat post. I don't know if you guys heard
Oh
about
my
that.
gosh,
Oh,
no.
no.
Did you guys hear about this?
No.
So
Oh,
shortly
no.
after I flatted, I mean, it probably was a mile after, I was like, hey, Josh, is my tire looking okay? He's like, no, dude, you're good. And all of a sudden, he's gone from our group.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, he was riding amazing all day. And I'm like, man, he must have flatted too. And so, sure enough, you know, at the finish line, he's like, dude, I snapped my seat post. And
Wow.
he said, yeah, on one of the bumps in the road or whatever, he felt like this kind of creak. And it was like he just felt a little bit of a creak in his seat post or whatever. And then I think he hit another bump, and it just snapped, and it
Oh
almost
wow.
crashed him. And
Wow.
so, get this, he basically took out the cracked portion, and then just like put his
Put a seat post in
yeah,
low.
put his seat post in low,
Yeah.
and pretty much was riding like BMX style.
Oh my gosh.
And what's crazy about that, like, I've had that happen before, where, you know, the seat post just like slips a little bit,
Yeah.
and your quads are just on
Oh,
fire.
yeah.
They're
fire.
cooked.
Yeah.
They're smoked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he still, I mean, I don't know what his average was for the rest of the race, but he still ended up just like putting down like a monster effort to finish
Yeah.
the race. And I can't remember where he ended up, maybe like fifth
Wow.
at Rockridge, but like, just had this like heroic effort on, like, with his saddle, basically, like,
It's
as
like,
low as
I'll
it
just
could
ride
go.
standing up. It'll be okay.
Yeah, I'll just ride standing up the whole time. You know?
So conversely, for me, I ended up, I was like, man, so I get this flat, and it was a sidewall puncture. And I'm like, man, like, this is a super decisive part of the course. I mean, the guys were like going crazy. People were starting to kind of fall off the group. So I just tried to plug it, of course, even though it was like, you know, like, it was never going to work. But you know,
Yeah.
I'm sitting there. I put literally 3 Dyna, like, I had 4 Dyna plugs. You know, I put
Yeah.
3 in there. I put the big one and then 2 small ones, just jamming them in. I tilt the bike sideways, you know, to get some sealant in there. CO2 sideways again, and I mean, it just shoots the Dyna plugs
Oh
out.
no.
So I wasted a CO2. Well,
Oh,
then,
man.
so then I'm like, you know what? Like, it's not even worth, because I carry a ton of plugs with me just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, you never
Yeah.
know. Like, I mean, you could end up with 5 punctures in the front, 5 in the
Yeah.
rear. So, like,
Yeah.
I have some of the, they're not the bacon strips, but they're the, like, some larger plugs.
Yeah,
or
they're
whatever.
like tire bacon strips, like you would put in a car
Yes.
tire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, they're yes, amazing
They're
for
just
gravel.
like super fat. Yeah, you're just like, if this doesn't work, I need a new tire.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So I'm like, I'm not even gonna mess around with that. Like, I'm just gonna tube it. That way I can get, and you know, it's like I'm you know, pretty quick at a tube change. So I'm like, okay, you know, whatever, like, hopefully this is under 5 minutes. So I changed the tube out, throw it in there. It was like the fastest, like, flat repair I've ever done, you know, and I put it
Nice,
back
yeah.
in. I'm like feeling super stoked. And then I'm like, dude, I forgot to put a boot in my tire. What
No.
an idiot, you know? And so I like, just take it out. You know, at this point, I'm just like literally pouring sweat like a shower.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so now I'm out of CO2s. And so I just am like sitting there with I carry Gorilla Tape. And so I'm like sitting there with Gorilla Tape. I put it in there, you know, and I'm just like
Yeah.
waiting for a CO2. So Jackson comes up, and Jackson, my teammate, he's like,
Yeah.
Michael, you flatted, like, you know, I'm so sorry. Like, and he goes, well, this will be your drop race, and drops it. He's like, you need anything? And I'm like, yeah, dude, you got a CO2. He drops the CO2 down. And he's like, this will be your drop race. I'm going to keep racing. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, do your thing, you know? And so long story long, I put the boot in, and it slips off. And so I have to wait for another CO2. Like, it was just like
Oh my
a
gosh, just one
comedy of
right after the
errors.
other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, who was it? Anderson. He had also flatted in that section. He comes up. He's like, dude, I flatted. I'm out of CO2s as well. And so we're like both just sitting there, kind of like, I mean, it's the equivalent of, we're just like thumb up on the side of the road, like, somebody get us out of here type of deal. So it took me, so finally get a CO2. It takes me like 20 some minutes by the time I get rolling again. And, I was like, I'm going to, like make, lemonade out of this situation. I'm just going to like try to, get a good workout in, get some heat acclimation in, like just got it's obviously
salvage
a
the day.
gorgeous course, and like tough course. And so I start, like going hard, I'm kind of feeling a little bit like, frustrated by the situation. And so I'm like, kind of, putting out like a, some tempo effort. And it's probably like 10 minutes into that. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to blow up if I keep doing this. and so I'm like, you know what? It was kind of that like reset of expectation. I'm like, I'm just going to kind of like, I'm just going to make it to the finish line.
Yeah.
And so I get through like Little Egypt and, or get to Little Egypt, I should say. And I'm like, oh, dude, like I'm smoked. Like I'm totally cooked.
Yeah.
And you're going down the descents and everything. And I'm like, never mind. I'm just going to try not to crash on my way back to downtown Beatrice. I'm like, I just don't want to like die on my way back. And so by the end of that race, you're like going up the climbs. And I mean, I was like, oh man, like I can barely push like a zone 2 pace right now. Like, and so make it to the finish line, I'm just stoked to finish. I had like texted my family. I'm like, hey, because my family had come in and we were going to go into Manhattan because I went to K-State for a couple of years before I went to chiropractic school and everything. And so I was like, man, let's all go. And my father-in-law went to K-State. And so I'm like, let's all go like downtown Manhattan, Aggieville, get some food, stop at Taco Lucha and everything. And so, and my two kids had come with my wife. And so I'm like, hey, lunch is going to be set back
a little bit.
Just
hope you're not too hungry.
Hope you're not too hungry. And so, anyways, just kind of one of those days, and y'all have them. But I mean, I guess kind of a long recap of all those. But no, I'm stoked for Pony Express, and I mean the talent that has come into Great Plains it's been really, really impressive to see.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool that it's kind of stayed as competitive as it is across the series, and that Jacob and I are kind of in this tight battle. And of course, our goal, I mean, if you look at the rankings, is hopefully to secure Sam. Up to second would be awesome, or even dude, he could win with the right circumstance.
Yeah.
So I think we're feeling pretty motivated going into Pony Express, and I think Jacob has raced a lot more aggressive as the series has gone on, which obviously paid off at Rockridge. So I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, it's gonna be fun to watch it wrap up, and so needless to say, you got Jacob pretty well marked. For Pony.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to let him get too far away.
so the two of us, I mean, he's always been up there. I mean, since Flint Hills, of course. And, and then, I mean, I remember riding a Sunday Chug in Lawrence with him. It was either last year or the year before. I believe it was last year, right after Unbound. And I went out to Lawrence for a Sunday Chug, and I don't know if either of you guys done that ride.
Have not.
No, Jackson keeps telling us we need to go and do it, so we're gonna have to go check it out.
Man.
Yeah,
they've got a good thing going, and so they, the ride starts super chill. It's kind of this, like, I mean, it's a social ride, and then you stop, And after that, the group kind of splits up, and they have a fast group. And usually it's cordial, everybody's just kind of riding, like, I mean, like there's no attacks, it's just kind of like kind of turn the screw a little bit. And last year I show up to this chug, and I'd gotten sick after Unbound and was off the bike for like 2 weeks. I mean, it was like crazy.
Yeah.
And so I come to this chug, and I'm like, man, like I'm not like feeling, like going crazy hard or anything. And it just ends up being this, like, I mean, it was a race. Like, it was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
You showed up to the group ride and a race broke out.
Right.
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
so we get to the end of this ride, and it's me and a couple of the guys that I race with, that are teammates, and then it was Jacob Schneller, and then I think there was one other guy in our group, and I didn't really know either of them, and it was kind of one of those like, yeah, what'd you guys say your name was? So anyways, of course, coming to this year, Jacob was on my radar, but at Rock Ridge, it was funny. There was that climbing section, and it was like that 9 mile, just kind of like slow burn that started at like mile 17 or 18 or something like that. And so then of course, I think over the course of that 9 miles is like 1.5%. So nothing crazy.
Yeah.
No,
But
just
towards
enough.
the end there, just enough. And so we had kind of started to ramp it up a little bit there. And towards the last 3 pitches, at Solstice, of course, it was like, I mean, there was this selection, right? And so it was like, okay, let's see, kind of, I think our group is probably like maybe 18 strong at that point. And so it's like, okay, let's see how the groups ride. And so it's the bottom of the climb. Sam had already been setting a pretty good tempo, and I think I was sitting second wheel, and it was like, all right, I'll just kind of take over and attack. And so this was on the first of those 3 pitches, and so I attack, and we get towards the top, and Jacob had already been just sending attacks left and right. I mean, it was great. I was like, okay, like Jacob's, like motivated.
Yeah.
And they'd all been kind of, his tailwind, like Sam and Josh were doing a great job of kind of keeping the group together. And so like none of them were really all that threatening until we got to this first pitch. And I sit up from this attack because I kind of turned around. I'm like, oh, okay, like everybody's apparently riding very strong today. Well, Jacob attacks, and it's like, oh shoot, got to mark that. So I stand up, follow him. Well, then Calvin attacks, and all these dudes just start, like, I mean, it was like people just started throwing these haymakers, and we're at mile like 25, and I was like, I've made a huge mistake. Like, I should have never attacked. Like, it's the joke after that. I was like, okay, I seem to have upset you all. Like,
Yeah.
and so literally the rest of the race, my game plan after that, I was like, oh, dude, I can't hang with these lighter guys on these climbs. Like, they're killing me. So I had kind of anticipated just like taking it easy until Little Egypt, and then kind of seeing what would happen, on the more technical section.
Yeah.
And and then of course, flatted. But I mean, I think like the way Calvin was riding that day, and some of the attacks he had sent on kind of those earlier climbs, I mean, it wasn't surprising to hear that he had won. Like, I mean, they were blowing it up.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. Thanks for the little recap of the front of the race. Me and Danny never get to see it, but
we just get to hear stories about it.
The stories about it, So it's always good. Yeah. But so you mentioned you're a chiropractic. You work at a chiropractic clinic here in Kansas City, the F.I.T Muscle Joint Clinic, the best chiropractors in Kansas. So
we try, man. We try.
I like it.
Rehab, musculoskeletal rehab is kind of a choose your own adventure profession, and so no, we try to do it right. So yeah, we're a chiropractic, physical therapy, and occupational therapy group, specifically certified hand therapy with our OTs. Yeah, I mean, try to be pretty progressive, and the kind of treatment style that we offer. So, it's a lot of, manual therapy, and active rehab. So we try to kind of combine the best of those two worlds. Whereas, traditionally chiropractic is thought of as, kind of more of the joint manipulation aspect, and, physical therapy is thought of as more of kind of the home exercise programming aspect of things. And we try to kind of blend those two. And so, I think, kind of through my formal education, it was always thought of as, chiropractors are more for kind of spine specific complaints, and then PTs are going to be more of kind of your post-surgical rehab. And, for direct access, and, what's funny about that is, if you look at kind of our scope of practice and even our education, the two professions, there's a lot of overlap, especially when you look at, more of these kind of overuse injuries. And, so like, we have physical therapists on our team that are absolutely phenomenal at joint manipulation. And then conversely, a lot of our chiropractors, especially, with some of our backgrounds, are really skilled at the home exercise programming aspect of things and kind of the active rehab. And I think particularly when it comes to endurance athletes, I remember even in undergrad when I had just started racing, one of my first overuse injuries was hamstring tendonitis after Unbound. It was my first year racing, and I knew very little at the time. It was just, oh man, riding bikes is fun. Of course, at this point, the Unbound or Dirty Kansas at the time. It was still very grassroots. And one of my teammates on the road had signed up. And as it got closer, he said, "Man, I don't want to do this. I'll give away my entry." And of course, you think about that now, like no one's going to give away an entry. It's going to be like, hey, like I'm going to sell this thing to the highest bidder.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why that
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And so he gives me this entry, and the only reason that even worked out was I had won a like entry level mountain bike from one of the bike shops in Manhattan, like a month prior to, like it was like May, and I won this mountain bike, and I had a friend of mine that was a part of the cycling club that he had signed up for Dirty Kansas and had been training for it. And I'm like, oh man, well, if he's doing it, like, that'd be kind of fun to do it too. And it was kind of this like on a whim thing.
Yeah.
So I do Dirty Kansas on a mountain bike. I had been, training predominantly for crit racing. And so I'm this total noob. And I stay with the lead group for the first 50 miles and at the time there were 3 checkpoints instead of 2. So the first checkpoint, I make it in with the lead group, and I'm like, dude, like this is awesome. Like and of course, then from about mile 50 to 200, it was like, just a slog. So it took me 16 and a half hours. I developed horrible hamstring tendonitis after this, and I go to a PT, and I had been to PT for a labrum repair when I was in high school, so I was familiar with physical therapy. Was kind of starting to get interested in that being a career path, and so I go to this PT, and she's like, "How did you get this injury?" And so I tell her, and she's like, "How much are you riding your bike?" And so I tell her, and she's like, "Oh, well, you gotta." And it was kind of the classic story you hear. It's just like, yeah, you can't ride your bike. And she's like, hamstring tendonitis, you got to take, at least a month off, but, potentially up to 3 months off. So this is, of course, June, like prime training time.
Yeah,
so
you're like, I'm not going to do that.
Right? No. I wish. I was 18, and I took the whole summer off, and of course, I go through the rehab, and it was like, and the rehab side of things was fine. Like all the exercises were okay, but it just was kind of this like non-specific recommendation to, take that long off the bike. And I came back, and it wasn't like I was pain free. Like I still had this kind of, twinge in my hamstring. And so of course then, and I mean, this is what we see all day long here at Fit, which is like you kind of modify your training. So I had to kind of like almost kind of figure it out on my own. And of course I was doing it without, um, much guidance. And so it was like probably 6 months before I was pain free riding again.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of and so again, I was kind of interested in going into physical therapy and ended up shadowing a couple other PTs, and just it wasn't kind of what I had remembered it being when I was in high school and had that labrum repair that first kind of lit the fire. And coincidentally ended up shadowing a chiropractor, and it was super relational, like it was one-on-one care. And the guy I shadowed, you could just tell that he was very patient centered, and not that the PTs that I shadowed or had seen with my hamstring weren't, but it was kind of a refreshing experience. And so I ended up taking a tour of the chiropractic school here in town, and they had a concurrent program that allowed me to kind of finish my bachelor's while starting the DC program. So it shaved a year off of school for me. And, that was kind of motivating to get out in the workforce a little bit sooner. And, so that's kind of the path that I took. And so what's ironic about that whole thing is, I get about a year into chiropractic school and I'm like, oh man, like this, there's also some, there's some, kind of things that, reminded me of, kind of my experience with PT, which was like, man, this is really diverse, kind of the path that you can take. And some of it's like, a little weird. And then some of it's really evidence-based. And so fortunately, kind of got involved in some groups that, kind of took the more evidence-based approach. And that's kind of where we are today. And so specifically trying to, kind of tie in a lot of, really, there's this famous quote in the rehab world that's, rehab is training while injured. And, so it's like, you take a lot of these kind of traditional, training principles and, apply that to, exercise modification, lifestyle modification, when somebody's battling an injury. And it's like, that's kind of, it's not always the flashiest stuff, but it's just like, man, like if a cyclist comes in and they're battling an injury, it's like, man, like, let's try to keep you training and give you some good movement prep exercises that you can do before you hop on the bike that maybe help manage your pain. And then maybe we adjust and maybe I connect with your coach and, we talk about how we can modify your intervals throughout the week. And that way you're not, the conversation that we have a lot is, you're kind of weighing two negatives. Yeah. One being, that potentially you prolong the injury recovery by continuing to train. But the flip side, that's you may, your fitness may go on this deep dive off of a cliff. And so we're kind of weighing those two things where it's like, okay, what's the lesser of those two evils? It's also detrimental if you lose, if you can't ride for a month and you lose all this fitness and then you come back and you have to regain that, maybe it's better to continue to train. And if you have this little nag in your knee or whatever, as long as it's not preventing you from getting better long-term, maybe that's the better of those two options. And so it's kind of that, I think, it's kind of that team decision making versus just me being kind of the dictator of treatment of you can't ride your bike or you're never going to get better. That person's, especially nowadays, that person's never going to come back. And, then potentially they're dealing with this thing for 6 months instead of 6 weeks. Yeah, or they get impatient and they just end up hurting themselves again when they do think they're better. They start harder and try to get better faster, and it just can lead to another injury. Yep. So 100%. Yeah. So we got just a couple of quick hit rapid fire questions if you're ready for that. Yeah. Ready? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So these are ChatGPT based, our favorite rapid fire section. Right. These are yes, no, true, false. So you only get one word answers. All right. Are you ready? All right. All right. So you've pretended to pull, but you actually weren't working. True or false? Oh yeah, true. Oh, dude.
Of course.
Of course.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Cycling is a chess game, man.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. You blamed your bike when it was actually your legs. True or false? Be honest.
I think actually, oh man, there's probably, in 13 or 14 years, there's probably been a time I blamed my bike and it was my legs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, honestly, like I feel like I'm pretty honest. Like if you don't like, I mean, you can be like, I feel like I'm known for being pretty consistent, and there's just days where you don't have it, and it's like, if you don't have it, it's like, so I don't know. Maybe the alternative now would probably be like, I don't know, 2 kids, blame lack of sleep.
There you go.
That's always
there
a good
you
one.
go.
Yep.
All right, last one. You'd rather suffer than strategize.
That's a good one.
Oh man, you gave me like a toss. You gave me a toss up for the
I know
first
these are tough.
Yeah.
Man, I think I'd rather strategize for sure.
Yeah.
Like I love the tactical piece of racing, and I think especially I feel like I was kind of on the like tail end of kind of that era of racing. Like some of my like, I mean, I remember racing against like Steve Tilford and stuff, and I mean he was the chess master of racing, and there's a lot of guys in Kansas City that were mentored by him. I was never teammates with him, and never knew him super close, but a lot of the guys that have mentored me were quite close to him. Shad Smith, I mean, he's still a teammate. He's raced, 25 plus years, and
he's a master tactician, that guy.
100%. Yeah, super strong. But I mean, he was kind of the first to introduce me to kind of the psychology of racing. And I think over the years, particularly the direction that gravel racing has taken, it's just guys that they're so strong, and they maybe haven't had the exposure to a lot of like kind of race tactics, which makes it really interesting, because there's certain scenarios where you're like, oh man, this doesn't necessarily make sense what's happening in the race. And so you try to kind of figure out like, okay, well, how does that change my strategy then? Kind of coming in and like trying to figure out like how to play things. But I think like, I mean, that's something that we focus on a lot within our team, is like, okay, yes, like intervals are important, going hard is important, but like also learning how to like, work as a team, and like how to like use, like we'll do kind of these race preview meetings prior to any of like the gravel cup races, and then before any of the road races we'll have a team meeting, and it's just kind of talking about this type of stuff, where it's like, okay, like what's kind of our strength of the day, how does this course suit certain riders, and how can we use kind of our strategy to the best of our advantage.
Right.
Awesome. All right.
Well, yeah, we know you're pressed for time because you're a busy chiropractor. So we're going to let you go here, but it was great talking to you. And we're going to be pulling for you on the Pony Express. And
no fake poles up front, though.
Yeah, no fake poles.
Can't promise anything. If I had a bigger lead, then maybe not. But I'll be pulling out all the tricks.
There you go.
Yeah, good.
It's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah, thank you for your time, and everyone, thanks for listening. And if you like this, share with your friends, and give us a thumbs up. And and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please, if you like what we are doing here, leave a like, rate us, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. It really helps us grow and finds us more SufferSooner squad mates. And remember, when the finish line feels impossibly far away, we don't give up, we push harder, we dig deeper, and we find solace in the knowledge that our suffering is temporary and our resilience is forever.